Hey movers, shakers, and the stuck but curious. I'm Freya Gordon, and this is Good Shift, the podcast that helps you figure out what's next in your career and make a move with confidence. If you're feeling stuck in your career, unsure where to even begin rebuilding, or craving something more purposeful but finding yourself held back by stories and limiting beliefs, this episode is for you. And I want you to really hear this. You are not trapped. You just haven't taken the first step yet. Today's guest has a career shift story that might be exactly what you need to finally make a move on that idea, that change, or that pull that you've been neglecting. Debs Brocklesby is the founder and CEO of Stoked NZ. Doesn't the name just say it all? The ethical, adventure-ready towlies brand loved across New Zealand. And if you're not familiar, towlies are those wearable towels, the kind that you'll see surfers and adventurers throwing on. But being all about good shifts on this podcast, you'll be able to guess that Debs didn't start as a founder. She was a performance analyst for the New Zealand Olympic cycling team, a highly specialised role where her identity was tightly wrapped around her job and her expertise. Then a freak accident and a brain injury forced everything to stop. What followed was a reset, a realignment of her values, a rebuilding of her health and confidence, and the unexpected beginning of a product-based business that she would grow from her spare room into a multi-million-dollar brand with global reach and customers who have come back more than 50 times, which is absolutely crazy. So today we're diving into what it actually takes to let go of an identity, to move through fear, to tune out expectations, and to build something meaningful that you're absolutely stoked about from scratch. If you're looking for a roadmap for rebuilding your career and starting a business of your own, this is it. Debs, welcome to Good Shift. I am so excited for this conversation.
Hi, I am so stoked to be here. And I truly wish I had a podcast like this when I was in my shift. You're doing amazing things. You should be so proud.
Oh, thank you. Well, it was very kind of you to come here and share your shift with everyone. And I love that we've already really started throwing stoked through and our wording through all of this.
Yeah.
It really sets the vibe. Okay, so I want to open with a quote from your LinkedIn that I absolutely love. It feels like it really captures the heart of what you've built at Stoked. Life is short, do cool shit. Tell me what that means to you.
It means I had a brain injury, freak accident that changed my life. And I think we don't all know when our tomorrow is going to run out, right? And we only have one shot and one life. So do cool shit, whatever that means to you. If that's like hiking Mount Everest or if it's going down to your local lake, like whatever that is, surround yourself with epic humans and just make the most of every day.
That's such a great way to open. Thank you, Debs. So if I asked you 3 to 5 years before launching Stoked, what you think your life would look like today, what do you think you would have said?
I guess I would have, I love sport and I love analytics and I had an epic job. I think I'd still be in it, but I would probably be listening to your podcast trying to figure out how to get out of it, Yeah, and go all in on me.
Awesome. And when you were in that job, being the performance analyst, it sounds like it was an epic job and really aligned with the fact that you love sport. So what were those feelings, if any, that you were having? Because obviously your shift was caused by when you had that freak accident and you sort of took some time to reassess. But did you have any feelings during that time that maybe this isn't what I want to do for the rest of my life?
Yeah, I did, and I don't want to go too much into it, but the high-performance sport, to be a high-performing anything, a CEO, an athlete, or whatever, it's a really unique environment, right? And while I appreciate that, there was a lot of stuff that went on there that wasn't okay. And I was staff member, I think, number 45 out of 60 to leave after the Rio Olympics. And as much as myself and others tried to create change, we couldn't. And one of my friends and athletes, Liv Podmore, has since passed away from me leaving to starting Stoked. She took her own life. She was an athlete that was treated really unfairly, and while we couldn't see that coming, we could definitely see things like that were going to come. I don't want to cry. And so while I loved it and I got to travel the world and I had a great job and most of the people were great, there was so much stuff that wasn't okay and I couldn't change it and I had to get out of there. So I guess hitting my head was just a catalyst for fuck it. What have I got to lose, So
thank you for providing that context. And Yeah, I mean, I actually think I've heard some stuff along those lines, and that's absolutely horrific. So I can see why you're upset about it, and it makes total sense as to why you were feeling the need for a shift as well. So that context is really helpful for us. But despite everything going on that, you were trying to push for and change for and you weren't able to do, did you feel like you could leave because you had so much identity tied up in there and, you were on this amazing career path there? So I imagine that was really hard for you to think, okay, I'm not okay with what's going on here and I don't really like that I can't make change, but, what would leaving even look like for me and how would that feel?
100%. And I did stay there for a lot longer than I probably would have wanted to because of that. I felt like I should be way more grateful than I was because it was my dream job on paper. And I was like, well, what am I going to do next? Also, it's quite a specialised role. Where do I go from here? So there was all of those feels, and I tried so hard to make it to the Commonwealth Games, and that's what I knew, that's what I wanted. My job, like I say, was mostly epic, but then just the culture and stuff and what was going on, I was like, I can't. And I was like, oh no job, no worries, no money, but it'll work out.
Yeah,
I'm really into manifesting and thinking things will work out if you're willing to work for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And we'll dig into that a bit more soon. And I'm very curious to hear about you starting your journey with no money and not much of a plan and things, because that's always a good story and very inspiring for people who maybe haven't got themselves into a good position yet and want to make a shift. But I just want to go back to dig a little bit more into that feeling of real stuckness that you talked about. So for someone who's sitting here listening, feeling really stuck themselves and not quite sure what that feeling is, could you try and describe how that stuck feeling sort of felt to you?
Yeah, I remember sitting on the couch with my partner and just sitting there I didn't own my own home, although I was 23, who does these days, but I was paying someone else's rent. I was in my dream job and I was feeling like I should be really grateful, but I actually wasn't stoked. And I was just feeling in a big rut. And I remember going how am I ever going to, I get paid X, I have to pay X to rent and live and all that jazz. How am I going to get out of this? What am I going to do? All of the things we're all going through, just being it makes no logical sense to quit my job, but I need to. I feel it deeply. It's an awful feeling and I wouldn't wish it on anyone. But I think you just need to find resources and surround yourself with good humans and take the leap, because life is short, and if you don't get it tomorrow, then what,
So for someone who's sitting here listening thinking, okay, that sounds like me, I'm feeling stuck, I know I want to change,
yeah,
but they're not quite sure what first steps to take, what would you say to them?
I would start with a pros and cons list, literally write down all the things that aren't working, what is working, and then what, it sounds really airy-fairy, but what actually sets your soul on fire? If money was no object, or if education was no object, how would my ideal life be? And then kind of work back from that, because there are opportunities out there if you're open to finding them, I think. And maybe that sounds a bit woo-woo, but fuck, you can literally do whatever you want to do, right? But you've got to know what your North Star is. You've got to know what's important to you, what you are willing and not willing to sacrifice, and then start to make a plan and get out of it.
Yeah, I totally believe that about the opportunities as well. In fact, I don't believe it, I know it.
Yeah.
And you know it too, because you've gone out and proven that for yourself. There's plenty of opportunities out there for everyone. You just have to go and find it. So I like that advice about doing the pros and cons list, writing stuff down, and I like what you said about having your North Star.
Yeah.
What is it that you really want? And do you have any advice for someone who's trying to think, oh, what is my North Star? I like all these different bits and pieces, and I'm not quite sure what that is, as to how they might start to find that for themselves?
One of the coolest books I read really early on is Start With Why by Simon Sinek. And I was reading it when I was in a kind of bad headspace because of the culture at work. So if I go and read it now, all the stuff highlighted, I'm oh yeah, relevant. But it's such a good place to start with why. What is your purpose? It sounds real dark, but maybe it's because I hit my head. I think if we're at your funeral tomorrow, what do you want people to say about you? And it's like, what gets you out of bed in the morning? What is your purpose? Why are you here? And that's a great resource. And then the other one I read really early on as well is by Daniel Flynn, who founded Thank You, the social enterprise in Aussie.
Haven't come across that, but interested now.
Yeah, that's super cool. And so he wrote a book called Chapter 1. And you know how like all normal books are like vertical, I guess? All normal books are the same way. Theirs is like horizontal, which is actually way better if you're reading like on your back and you're holding it. Anyway, but the whole thing was like, you can't make a social enterprise. Like, look at World Vision, look at all the others, you know, like they don't actually help, blah, blah, blah. And his whole message is like, what if? What if it works? What if you're wrong? What if we do this? And they've blown up. And I think it's just that mindset shift of like, figure out your why are you here, what do you want to do? And then who's saying it's not going to work? Like, what if it does? What if all your wildest dreams come true? Like,
yeah, it's so interesting. We always think of the what if negatively,
yeah.
But I like what you're saying, reframing to the what if this does work and the positivity around that. I've actually referenced this before, must have been like a somewhat similar conversation, but the Netflix book, That Will Never Work, and just every time that there was an idea, and especially on the Netflix one, everyone was telling him that will never work. And it's, you know, so easy for people to have that mindset. But I love your flip. Chapter 1, is that what the book's called?
Yeah.
And is that sort of really diving into the reframing the what if? Is that sort of a core theme of that book?
Yeah. Yes, it is. And chapter 1, the premise that like there's plenty more chapters to come for that business as well, which is super cool. And they're like really bringing everyone, like great community building piece, get everyone on board really early and come along for the journey, which is very cool.
Okay, awesome. So I want to dig a little bit into the accident that you had and how that changed your perspective in a second. But do you think that you would have got to the point of quitting without that impetus to stop and take some time?
I don't know. I've really thought about this a lot, and I'm not big on... I don't love everything happens for a reason, because a lot of shitty stuff happens in the world. But I do think, like, shitty things do happen, and you can either make lemonade or you cannot, you know? Mm-hmm. So as silly as it sounds, I'm so thankful for my head injury because it changed my world. And my life now is like, if 8-year-old Debs could have seen this, it would blow her mind.
That's so cool.
And I love that. So, like, I'm honestly thankful. I'm thankful for it.
That's awesome. And, yeah, funnily enough, I actually had not as bad as yours by any means, but I had a bad concussion. I walked into a tree, which is really unfortunate because it ended up being quite bad, and that's actually was a big cause for me to shift my perspective. So I definitely am on board with the, you know, make lemons from lemonade type concept, and you're such an inspiration to see how you've done that. And, you know, I think a lot of people listening will be able to relate to something shitty happening, because as we know, so much goes on, and how can you really think to reframe that and use it to your advantage? So I'd love you to talk us a little bit through the accident and then how that started to make you shift your perspective, what you started to think about after that, and was it that you were forced to take time and that's what made you reflect, or just talk us through how you got to where you are now?
Yeah, cool. So I was riding my bike in my friend's backyard, and I just went over like a half-meter drop, and that's cool, but I do that stuff all the time. And I just landed weird, and I kind of went over my bars and landed on my left ear, and then my bike came down and hit me in the back of my head as well. So my brain kind of got like a real shake up, kind of left and right and front and back. Great. The next day, like a couple of days later, feeling like pretty headachy, I thought I'd done a rib actually. Went to the GP and she was like, "Oh, you'll be right, mate. How long do you want off work?" And I was like, "Well, no, I mostly like my job. I don't really want time off." And then kind of like 5 days in, my partner Gary, like, I'm so thankful I worked at cycling in this aspect at the time, because the athlete doctor took one look at me and was like, "You are no good." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And
they would have seen a bit of that, I'm sure.
Yeah. And she knows me better than, you know, your 5 minutes with the GP. So she sent me off for an MRI. We had that. a wee while later, and it came back with bruising on my brain, and they're like, oh, there could have been a bleed, but, you know, we just didn't get there in time. Oh, well, kind of thing. Like, we just have to deal with the symptoms and what we've got in front of us now. So it was a long recovery. Like, I spent a lot of time in a dark room, months, and then, like, some of my rehab involved kids' Lego. You know, like for 5-year-olds, put this piece here, you end up with a monkey. Great. But one day I had misplaced a part, and I was so wild at Lego, you know, multi-billion-dollar corporation, because my Lego monkey was missing a piece. But my partner sorted it, we were back on board, and I made my monkey, and I was okay. But yeah, between those and kids colouring in books, that was a lot of my rehab, and just lots of appointments with neurologists and all the things to get on top of my pain. And the worst thing about a head injury, you'll know from your concussion, I wish I just broke a collarbone or something, you know, you look exactly the same from the outside. I don't know about you, but I was lashing out, my emotions were out of control, and like family and friends didn't know how to deal with that. So it really impacted relationships, and still does to this day, 10 years on, which is not ideal. But yeah, so I hit my head and kind of took a year and a half to recover, get back to work. But during that time, I couldn't drive, I think, for a year of it. Like, I couldn't cross a road by myself. I was pretty messed up for a wee while. And I lost all independence, and I just missed being outside in nature. I just wanted to go for a lake swim. I just wanted to go. I'm a rubbish surfer, but I give it a go. And, you know, I'm here for it. And I just wanted to go do all the things that I couldn't do. And I already had a towel poncho, but I have eczema, it was microfiber, I hate it on my skin. And I was like, I guess it was probably on my mind a lot because I lost my independence and I couldn't be outside. I mean, I could be outside, but I couldn't get to a lake by myself, you know. And then I'd get there and forget we'd been there anyway because head injury.
Oh no.
So I was like, I'll make some towel ponchos. And like my partner Gary, bless him, I'm so thankful for him. He was like, yeah, okay then. Like, I'd never sewn stuff. I'd never had a business. I didn't know. Like, I didn't know pattern paper was a thing. I didn't know any of this. And so I went to my grandma's best friend and I was like, hey, I want to make these towelies. Can you help me? And we like sewed some up. And my friend's like, these are sick. I was like, what? Okay. And then, I'd love Turkish cotton because with my old job cycling, I travelled heaps and we were always between countries and hotels and blah, blah, blah. And my mum had got me a Turkish towel, and they pack it really small and they dry really fast and they can go back in your suitcase and not smell. And I was like, there's something in this. And at the time, like there's heaps now that have taken inspiration, but at the time, no one was making a Turkish cotton towlie or towel poncho. And so I like spent hours just Googling. Also, if anyone's going to start a business, like come up with your business name and then be like Deborah at Stoked NZ. Don't just be like Deborah.Brocklesby@hotmail.com, like shooting off, trying to get suppliers. Maybe that's really obvious, but it wasn't to me. But as soon as I changed it to Deborah at Stoked, even though I didn't have a company yet, got so many more responses. And then, I made some towelies, and then like that was November that I launched them via a Facebook post to my friends when I was in Colombia at a World Cup. And then in like January got a wholesale order for 1,000, and I was like, oh shit. So
you're like, this has got serious.
Yeah.
And so were you still working at Cycling NZ at the time?
Somewhere between I think I quit like end of November, start of December, and I was like, it's a summer product, if I'm going to give it a go, I need to go to markets. I'd never even been to a market as a consumer. Yeah. Like, I didn't know where they were. But I can't remember which day I quit, but it was somewhere in there.
Yeah, and so after you'd had the head injury, you took some time off, and that's sort of when you started playing around with the towels in the later portion of that recovery, and then you went back to work.
Yeah, for a wee bit.
And how long did you go back to work for before you ended up quitting?
I should know this, but I honestly can't remember.
No
it was
stress.
It was only a matter of months.
Oh, okay, great. And then what was it like when you actually had to quit and hand in your resignation? Like, how did that feel?
Honestly, it felt, I was so over it by that point, because I alluded to the culture not being great. But I was really gutted because I didn't make it to the Commonwealth Games, and I really wanted to, because some of those athletes I started when I My first internship was when they were in like the Junior Worlds team.
Yeah.
And this would be like their first com game. So I really wanted to go, but I just couldn't. I hated turning up to work every day. Yeah. And so I think once I made making it was really hard, but then I was like, I literally can't change this. I'm out. And then I went to Colombia. It was my last World Cup. I launched it while I was in Colombia. And then, not long after that, I quit and I was like, see ya. Yeah.
And so it was more the decision-making process for you to actually quit rather than the quitting itself that was the difficult part.
Yeah.
And so you've said that leaving your role brought up some limiting beliefs when you're having to start your business. Can you talk us through what the strongest ones were there? Because I'm sure a lot of people can relate to the ones that you have, as we've all obviously got our limiting beliefs that stop us from making a leap.
Yeah, for sure. So I studied a sport degree, right? For one, all my friends at uni that were doing like bigger or better degrees or whatever always mocked me for being the sports student. So I think I had some hang-ups about that. Then I got an internship which led to my role, and I don't know anyone else with my degree that like got such a good job. So there was so much tied up in that, like, should I be walking away? Am I being ungrateful? Is actually just all high performance sport this hard? Like, and I talked to a lot of people in the industry that have been in it for a long time, and so there was a lot of that. And then I remember I was at markets and some of the athletes were walking around like over summer, and I was the girl there standing selling towels under a gazebo, and I like wanted the ground to swallow me up. I struggled so hard. I'm like, never going back to markets. Like,
what is markets, just for clarification?
Like going to a summer market.
Oh, I know what you mean, where like people sell stuff at different stalls and things. Okay, cool.
Yeah, like real low-key, old mate selling strawberries out of his boot.
And you're selling the towels while all these like Olympic athletes are walking around.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my God. And like ex-boyfriend saw me and I was like, oh, stop it. I was a performance, and it was that as well. It's like, if I'm not a performance analyst, who am I? If I don't work in a high performance sport, who am I? What do I do? I don't know if guys ask themselves this or if it's a real chick thing, but like, am I good enough now then if I quit? Like, there's so much in that. And for so long, if you ask me now, any marketing person would be like, what's your tagline? And like, what is Stoked? I still go, I make these just still now, I think I don't own it. Mm-hmm. But in the last few years, I have, because we've raised a shitload of money for charities, and I see the bigger picture of what we do. It's not just a towel we make. We've actually changed people's lives. But I've finally got there now, but Stoked is 8 years. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, limiting beliefs, just get over them. They are hard and they are real, and I feel for you if you're sitting in it. But find some great resources, give yourself a hug. You can do this, and you're absolutely worth going all in on what you want.
That's awesome advice, and it's really nice. That's one of my favourite things about this podcast, is talking to people at a really relatable level. So really love that you can share that, that your limiting beliefs have still hung around you and it's taken a long time to push through those. If someone's sitting there with a limiting belief that they're not sure how to start taking on, what's the first thing that you would tell them to do?
I'm really lucky that one of my first mentors, so I'm really big on surrounding yourself with people that excel in areas that you might not. So one of my very first mentors that, like I said, I started with no money. I spent $5,000 on a mentor in like the first 2 months. And it's like
scary.
I had like 8 in my bank. My mum was like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah. Anyway, luckily for me, she had a psychology background. And so I learned how to reframe really early on. And I think that normalizes it. And the other funny thing about this, and I hope she doesn't hear, but someone really close to me just told me this past week that she thinks I'm a bit of a wanker because I have myself online and all these things. And that would have held me back years ago, except I know that's not true, and I know why I'm here, and I know why I'm showing up. And I'm showing up for me and all the other people that are impacted by my business and the good that we do. So you have self-limiting beliefs, and then you have other people. Like, no matter what stage you're in business, Stoked is 8 and we're multi-million, and people have an opinion on everything. So I think my advice is just be kind to yourself, and then find people that are great in that area. Like my mentor, she was a business coach with a psychology background, game changer really early on. I'm so thankful for her.
I absolutely love that you've said the self-limiting beliefs and then the other beliefs that people try to enforce on you. And it's not that, as you say, that it just happens when you are starting out. In fact, maybe less. Like the more you start to put yourself out there, the more you're sort of there for people to attack. So that's a really important one. And you said that you went and you spent a chunk of money on your mentor at the start, so you obviously identified that as being really important. And luckily that was not luckily, it's calculated, but great that that paid off for you. Can you talk us a little bit through, if someone's thinking that they should get a mentor on board, how they should go about doing that, and how did you decide on her?
Yeah, I am all for it. Like over our 8 years, I tallied it up not so long ago, and it was like 200 grand. I'm all for mentors, and I've had, I think maybe 8. Like I needed help with like kind of psychology, setting up the business, and then like she called it a super yacht goal, like or your North Star. Yeah. Where do you want to go? And then figure out how we're going to get there. I had someone that was like great at Facebook ads, someone that was great at like website CRO. And the latest one is a numbers wizard, which is great if you're doing like wholesale distribution or like big corporate stuff. I found a lot of them through Instagram and podcasts. So by the time I get on a sales call with someone, I don't need you to sell to me. I know, like, and trust you because I've been following you for 6 months or a year, and I know what part I'm missing in my skill set or in my business. So yeah, I think there's no shame in getting a business coach or a mentor. Like they can be your biggest asset. You're not meant to know everything. No one knows everything.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you're filling in the gaps that you don't have, and that's where you're pulling in the people first. And it sounds like you identified the most important piece for you to begin with was someone who had that sort of psychology piece that could help you like reframe and get yourself into the right space to really start the business. And then you started pulling on the more practical pieces, whether that was like financial or whatever, but following that.
Yeah, maybe not everyone needs to start with psychology because they might not have hit their head and been told by a doctor, like, we don't know if you'll ever be right. I'm really lucky that the sports psych at cycling, his name's David Galbraith, or DG, he like works with heaps of massive sports stars in New Zealand. I still have my original vision board that I made with DG back when I was sports cycling. Yeah, maybe not everyone needs to start there, but I think getting someone to help set up the like, even all that stuff you don't like. So many people start because they're a great artist or whatever. You still have to know all about the company structure and tax and all that BS. So, yeah, get help with that sooner rather than later.
Yeah, so you sort of identified for you what was the most important. So people should identify for them, like what's the most important.
Yeah, I think so.
They're missing. Okay, well, I'm very excited to actually, before we jump into Stoked and you starting that, how are you now with your head? Because it's a question I have, and I'm sure everyone else is going to be wondering how you're doing, because it sounds like you're doing great. You know, you've managed to build this business, this amazing business. So can you talk us through that a little bit?
I think I'm mostly good. I think part of it, like, you know, starting a business is the biggest roller coaster you'll ever get on, and I'm still on it. It's the biggest, or it's the fastest thing to self-discovery, learning. I've never learnt this much about myself. It's insane what you can do, what you can't do, where your limits are, and then how do you smash through those limits. I'm so fucking happy I'm here, and I'm just making the best. I'm just out here trying to make lemonade every day and share the stoke with others, because life is short and you just have to live it. Yeah.
You're stoked. You're stoked
I'm
to be here.
I'm so stoked, yeah.
Okay, so for people planning to start their own business, what should they expect the first year to look like?
It was the steepest learning curve of my life. I literally flew to Turkey in my denim shorts, my jandals and my duffel to go find suppliers. It's really culturally different. I've never been in business. Just, it was the biggest learning curve. And then people wanted to wholesale, and we're like learning about margins and, wild. But I think I don't know if the word is naive, or I think not having all the answers was actually a superpower. And being small and agile is the biggest superpower in small business, I think. You can react like that. You can take on that opportunity. You know, like So it'll be hard. It's not all unicorns and roses, and you're going to have to hustle. But I think once you've figured out your why and you know why you're doing it, and because there will be hard times, and those days when you're crying in a corner and you don't want to get out of bed, you're going to have to dig really deep and remember why you're doing this. And there might be a few of those in your first year, and the following 8. But you just got to stay in it and remember why you made that shift in the first place.
Yeah, so when you have had those moments where you're crying in the corner and thinking, oh gosh, what have I done? How did you get yourself to keep propelling forward?
I'm a real big vision board maker, and I would literally just sit and look at it and be like, Debs, this is how you wanted your life to be. Like, how much of this is true for you now? And my buddy Di says, like, this too shall pass. And it's so right. Like, which means the good times and the bad times are right.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
The good times will pass and you'll hit that next hurdle. But I think just trying to take a few steps back, for me, it means getting in nature, whether it's a swim or a run or a bike ride or whatever. Just getting back in nature, grounding yourself, and then being like, this is why we're here, let's go again. Yeah.
That's awesome advice, thank you. And I'm actually really annoyed at myself because I wanted to bring the towlie in and show it off, but that's okay, because Deb's kindly gifted me a towlie and I'm very excited to put it on. Beautiful Turkish towel. So most people never take action because they overthink. What is something that you think you completely overcomplicated in the early stages of the business that in hindsight you wouldn't have spent so much time on?
My answer to that is maybe I'm lucky I'm not a mega overthinker, and my thing has always been done is better than perfect. So I guess the flip side of not overthinking is if you look at my first website, it is tragic. And our first packaging and everything is so rubbish. But by going to a market, getting real customer feedback in real time, I was able to be like our towelies, the very first ones came in not washed, which means that the fibre felt a bit more like kind of coarse. So now we pre-wash them. So you could like take yours today and go for a swim. And they just feel like they're lush. They get better and better with age. But I learned that in the first market and I made that change.
And you learned that from a consumer telling that to you, did you?
Yeah, they're like, oh, this feels rubbish. And I'm like, if only you knew. And then I was like, I'm going to make it so you know. So I think I would probably be better if I overthought, because then I would have pre-imagined these things. Or like, I can't think what the word is. Thought these things might have happened, but I didn't. I just showed up with like nothing to lose and a book of like all my learnings, and I just took that. Sorry, a book to put any learnings from that thing.
I love that. That's really great advice.
And then I'll just go again. Yeah, my motto is definitely done is better than perfect, and I truly think there's a lot in that. Some people. Brianne West from Atique, she's now founding Incredibles.
Oh, I know the brand, but not her.
She said if you're not embarrassed by your first packaging, you launch way too late.
Oh,
and
I love
think
that.
That's such great advice. Like, you don't overthink it, don't get stuck in your head. I know that's easy to say, but just chuck it out there, get real-time feedback, iterate, make it better, go again.
Really powerful, thank you, because I think that is the thing that can stop someone, as you say, launching a brand for a long time. But I like that if you're not embarrassed of your first packaging or look, you've launched too late. That's a great thing for people to remember. And how many times did you go to the markets? Because it sounds like this consumer research was a big part of you figuring out all these little nuances that actually end up being reasons that people will or won't buy. And so how many times did you go to the markets? And can you talk to us a little bit about the benefit that you see from getting in front of who your consumer is going to be?
I went every weekend for 3 years.
Oh, incredible.
So good. And then but I wouldn't really have days off in the week because I was self-employed, and just trying to hustle. But they were invaluable and they built our brand. I didn't have a background in online marketing or marketing. I hung out in spreadsheets and velodromes. This was all new to me. So getting that real life feedback, like testimonials and things from customers, I could then go use that to, make some content online. As much as I wanted an online business, I resisted being online for years. And
because you were worried about it, or because you felt it was important to continue connecting with people?
I wanted to connect with people, but I think because I didn't have the skill set. I didn't know where to start. I didn't want people to think I was an egg. And I think they're all very real feelings for a lot of people. But yeah, and then I was like, you know what, Debs, you want an online business, you have goals, you're just going to have to show up. And then the more you do it, the easier it gets, right? But I do think those first few years, getting direct consumer feedback, being able to iterate your product is invaluable.
Yeah, that's great advice for people who are thinking about creating a product as well, because I'm sure it would have been very clear to you if you turned up at those markets that no one was interested in your product if it just wasn't a good idea as well. So it's a great way to validate.
100%. Our very first market, we sold 14 towlies, and I was like, watch out, world, we are onto something.
You're like, I haven't made enough for this.
Yeah, and now, I don't want to sound like a wanker, but like now we don't go to an event unless we make 20 or 30 grand a day. But that's only because we've got a whole strategy. We know what we're doing. There's only so much time and resource, right? You can only go to so many things. But hopefully that in itself is inspirational, because we went from 14 towlies to that. So
yeah, absolutely. It's incredibly inspirational, and it's really nice to get these foundational pieces from you as to where you started. So you're talking about there's been a big learning curve. You didn't have the marketing background and the digital background and things like that. So when you've been in positions of not knowing how to do things, how do you learn and continue to upskill?
I just constantly surround myself with people smarter than me. There's that
Such
saying,
a good one.
if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room, you know? So just find different rooms. Like I said, I've had a bunch of mentors. Some of them have run retreats. I remember being in a room and a Aussie business was like, yeah, we have wholesale orders of $1 million at a time. I was like, what? What? And I loved hearing that, because so many people are so scared to share their numbers or their the real stuff. And it's very easy to look on LinkedIn or Instagram and see the highlight reel. But I'm a real big advocate in just like collaboration over competition. Like I've a group chat with like 5 of my friends. We share numbers, we share real, very real stuff, and it's so inspirational. But likewise, if there's a great content creator or a contractor or freelancer, whatever, you know, like so happy to pass those good humans around. But yeah, just find people that are killing it in that area and figure out how to work with them.
Awesome. Surround yourself with good people.
Yeah.
So you've been in business for about 8 years now, and you've built something incredibly successful that's rooted in purpose, passion and fun. Lots of fun by the looks of things. I love following along your content. So looking back, what are around 3 things that you'd say have made the biggest difference in you getting here?
I think start with why, figuring out that like, and my head injury, I guess that's too. Realizing we don't know when our tomorrows are up, and also that I'm here and we can do so much good in Stoked. And like, if you want to make the world a better place, you've got to get out there and make it better as well, you know, like we're all responsible for that. And we do so much good in Stoked, and I fucking love that.
Yeah, I want to talk to you a little bit more about that, because you've built this brand grounded in ethics and natural fibres and real relationships with your manufacturers, which is so cool. I think a lot of people, they get worried to do that because there is sacrifices and costs that come with doing that. So what did you have to sacrifice to build your business with these guardrails?
There's definitely been times where I've been like, if we didn't give a shit about ethically made, we could do this, this and this. And then I just come back and be like, that's not us. Like, it's just not us. We want natural fibres. There's so much research around why, like there's a lot of recycled towelies on the market, and there's a lot of research around why that's actually not great. You're taking they're made from recycled plastic, which is an issue, but you're taking a food grade product into a material that releases microplastics. That's not great. Also, if it stayed as a food grade product, it could be recycled into another one. Just like don't use plastic in the first place would be ideal. But yeah, so we're always going to be natural. At the end of it, you can put it into the ground and it will decompose. Great. We're always going to be ethical. We've seen our makers in Turkey 3 times. They have insanely good working conditions. They stop for apple tea. Like, they're so stoked to go to work. Like, it's so cool. I would never, I actually want to start another product in our business, and we've made samples, but I will not put it into production until we've been to the factory and sent it for ourselves, because anyone can write whatever they want on their website, like, we're this and this, we have these standards.
It's all too common these days as well.
It's all too common. Loves a bit of greenwashing. I hate it. So we're not doing that until we go see it for ourselves.
That's awesome. So you always keep pulling yourself back to the why and like what's important to you. And from what I can see from that, you just feel really good about everything that you're doing, because I know a lot of people like the idea of building a purpose-driven business, but they then tell themselves that it's a luxury that they can't afford because that won't pay the bills or stability matters more. And what you're sort of saying, for you, it's coming back to your why. If someone's feeling that way from the start, because it can be very overwhelming when you can't even see the fact that you might even make profit down the road, let alone when you're going to do it and be sacrificing stuff up front because you're going to use better materials, which may be more expensive. What would you say to that person that is feeling like they can't afford to do a purposeful brand?
I think then save up some more cash until you can, because consumers, especially here in New Zealand, and especially, I know you're globals, people are listening from everywhere, but especially in New Zealand, and especially since COVID, more and more people are giving more thought to where their stuff is made, the local economy, all those things. You could be really crass and say that Stoked makes an expensive towel, which is a nice to have item, in what has been a really terrible economy for the last few years. Stoked is like growing year on year, and I think that is credit to our brand values. I've had a really terrible year this year personally, a lot of loss, and I've not shown up. This is probably the least I've shown up in my business, and we are continuing to flourish because of the epic team I've built around me, and because we have stayed so true to our brand values that we just are stoked. We have be good humans, do cool shit, get out and enjoy your backyard, and we've not let it slip.
And you obviously know your audience well, and you've built an amazing community, which is reflected in that growth. So for someone who is in their very first year of business, what should they focus on for building their community?
So now you could, well, I probably should have done it too, more like online then, but for me, going to the markets was where I really started to do that. And I just always had open lines of communication. I don't have my cell phone number on the website now, but we do have a customer service one that you can call anytime. Like, people video call us and help, and we help them find the right towlie for their daughter or whatever. But I think, as much as it feels weird showing behind the scenes as well, if you're packing orders or when things go wrong, because things will go wrong in business, a lot. And just like, we had towelies turn up that were the wrong size, or the necks were too small, or whatever.
Oh no, that's not a good one.
No, they're really niggly and they're really expensive, and it's also like, so we had some kids' towelies, the necks are too small, they won't fit a lot of kids. And our next kids' towelies are sitting on a boat that are going to arrive here in January. It's December right now. They're a great Christmas gift. We're basically sold out of kids. I literally can't do anything about the fact that they're sitting out there, that they're delayed, and I refuse to burn these ones that are slightly too small, because what you can actually do is cut the binding and release it a little bit, and it's not perfect. We call them not quite perfect, and we sell them for half price, and the rest of the towel is functionally fine. I will never burn that. We just own our mistakes. So yeah, I guess, sorry, coming back to, it's just, if you want to build a community, transparency and honesty will be the best values from the get-go.
I love that. I love that not quite perfect piece of the towelies as well. Just doing your thing and just showing up as a really real brand. For people who feel the pull to start something of their own, but they haven't taken the first step yet, what is one line or one concept that you'd offer them as some inspiration if they're wanting to do it?
I think I would just say, like, what's the worst that can happen? And you know how I said right at the beginning, I had a mentor who shared a psychology background. So this might be a bit controversial, because like, logical Debs knows that you should, before you make a shift, you should have some money set aside. You should probably have done a bit of market research and somewhat know where you want to go. Do your pros and cons list. I hadn't done any of that, as I mentioned. I just made a few towelies. People said they were cool, so off we went. But I was super lucky. I had a mentor, Prue, and she, everyone's saves their nest egg and does all the things. What I learned from Prue was I only had a plan A. I didn't have a plan B, and maybe that's really dumb. But the way she explained it to me was if you have, 1 foot in plan B and 1 foot in plan A, you're kind of not committed to either. So I had my vision board. I knew where I wanted Stoked to go. I just went all in. I reinvested everything back into the business for years. And I don't know if that's why it's worked out, but yeah, I had a plan A. I went all in. I need to say that I don't have dependents. I started this when I was in my early 20s. I didn't have a house at that point, but I do now, and my thinking's still the same. Yeah.
That's awesome. Have both of your feet in your plan A, and you keep coming back to the vision boarding, which I think is also a really important point for people. A lot of people don't quite know where to start, so if you're listening to this today, it sounds like being able to put together a vision board with your why. You can read the Start With Why book and start to pull that together, because you sound like you've just gone back and referenced that so much.
Yes, that. So mine, and whatever that means for you. So mine has a banging veggie garden. This year we bought our dream land. We built our warehouse there. There is a motor track. Everything that's ever been on my vision board is now real. It took me 8 years, but it has all happened. The other thing that was on my vision board 2 years ago was a trip to Tahiti. Random, but who doesn't love a tropical island? And then I was in our shop one day, and this guy walks in. He was like, "Hey, we've got a waka ama team. If you don't know, it's like canoe outrigger. We're going to Tahiti. Do you want to sponsor us?" And I was like, "Yes." And then so we pay the money, give them towlies, all the things. And then I kid you not, 2 weeks out, he's like, "Well, do you want to come?" And I was like, "Oh, I can't. It's the busiest time of the year. We make all of our money, blah, blah, blah." And we went to Tahiti. It was insane. And I had no idea how I was going to get there. It was on my vision board. You've just got to say yes when opportunities come your way. And the other thing that I love, and I don't know if you've heard of this, but writing a letter to yourself as if it's already happened. Yeah. Okay.
No, I'm just nodding along, thinking that sounds great. So tell us a bit more about that.
Super cool. So our brains don't know what is real and what's not. And I learned this from my psychology mentor. There's a lot of neuroscience behind it, but we can essentially trick our brains to think we already have these things. So last year I wrote a letter to myself that was you can write it to yourself, your friend, your grandma, whatever. And I was like, "Shiloh, you wouldn't believe it. It's 2025 and we just bought our dreamland. We built our warehouse. We went to Canada. We continue to do heaps of cool stuff in Stoked. We gave back a shitload of money to Breast Cancer New Zealand, and best year of my life. I rode my bike every day. It was sick." And in March this year, I bought my dreamland. We built our warehouse, blah, blah, blah. And I have so many examples of that throughout my time in Stoked. One happened in the first year. I needed 10 grand to pay a supply payment. I don't know, $400 in the bank. My mum was like, "Come to this event." It was $345, and I was like, "Mum, it's going to leave me with nothing." And she was like, "Oh, it goes no good. I'll help you out with the fee." I was like, "Oh, thanks. I have nothing to lose. It's really generous." I went to that event, and I sold 10 grand. I didn't sell 9. I didn't sell 20. I sold 10 grand.
You're like, "I should have made it 20.
Yeah, and so many examples like that over my life and through Stoked. So make a vision board, write a letter to yourself or your aunt, your bestie, and get behind it and just watch the fucking magic unfold.
Thank you. Those are really nice, inspirational, but actionable, grounded steps for people. Before we go into the wrap-up, I do want to quickly touch on all the amazing work that Stoked has done for breast cancer, and I'm sure you guys have done other things too. I've just been following along for a while and seen all the epic events that you do. So can you just talk to us a little bit about how you have aligned Stoked with such a cool purpose? And then it's also obviously another part of the way that you've built your community, and you've built such a loyal base of fans because you do stuff that is important to you in the community. So we'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, so one of my best friends, her name's Di, and I met her through Prue, my very first mentor. And Di had breast cancer twice, and it was terminal the second time. She's not meant to be here. Cheeky 15 years later. She still is, and she is thriving. Di had a mastectomy and chose not to have reconstructive surgery. So Di has one breast, and she hadn't swum in public for years. for lots of different reasons. And then, like, I make towelies. I love swimming. I'm like, Di, here's a towel. It changed her fucking life. It gave her privacy. Like, yes, there is a conversation there around, like, why bodies are different, all that jazz, but sometimes you've had a shit day and you just want to go for a swim and you don't want to answer those questions. So it gave her a towel, changed her world, back swimming daily. And I was like, there's something in this. And especially given that so much of our audience are women, and the stats in New Zealand are 1 in 9 Kiwi women affected by breast cancer over their lifetime. So we ran a campaign last year called Show Us Your Tits, and we got our customers to draw their boobs all over towelies. We made a design, weaved them in, and we raised $39,000, which is insane.
Yeah, that is insane.
I think it's insane.
It's insane.
And during that, we had a photo shoot. We had Di and 3 others there who were all breast cancer survivors. These guys have never showed their scars to anyone. A lot of those photos are private just for them, but watching Gary and I were literally just crying in the corner. Like,
for a good reason this time.
They're like unmasking. Insane. One of the coolest moments of my life, and it changed these women's lives genuinely. And so we used those campaign videos to help raise money. And I was like, hold on a second. What if we can do this for more than 4 women? So this year we ran a topless swim at a beach you can only get to by boat. We chose that for a reason. And we had 70 women topless swimming. And then we went, into the hot pools and had mulled wine and food. And some of these ladies have never found their people post breast cancer. So one lady I sponsored because she's in stage 4 breast cancer. She's lost her family, her friends. Lost because it's a really hard conversation to have when someone's really ill. And I was like, I'll buy you a ticket, mate. You can come. And like change their world. And these ladies are like gone on to be besties. They're hanging out and they're like, Debs, we're going again next year. We're having 100 people. We're going camping afterwards because we've just made lifelong friends from this incredible experience. And like, Debs starting Stoked didn't know that was going to happen. And it's like incredible community building, but because it's done with genuine purpose and we're so passionate about it. And yeah, I think people can see through pink washing or green washing. I think you've really got to lead with your heart.
That's such a cool story, and I love to hear the things that Stoked has enabled you to do. It's amazing that you've been able to build Stoked for all the other reasons, but now you can use the platform as well as funds that you have from Stoked to go towards stuff like that, which is really inspirational for people who are wanting to help people or their community and things like that, and know that business is truly a vehicle to do that.
Yes. That is, my accountant said that to me early on, and I didn't really understand it. And yeah, if I was still at cycling, there's no way I would have been able to have this much impact. Like, I would not change it for anything.
And this leads me to one of the final questions. How has your definition of success changed over time since your days when you were at Cycling NZ to now?
So much. I mentioned my identity, and Debs was a performance analyst and all these things. My definition of success now is I can get out of bed and know that I am just trying to be the best human I can be, for our staff, for our community, for our team, for our makers. And hopefully through our towelies and all the content we share, we're just inspiring people to get out and see the world and like live their best life in their backyard.
And do you think when you were at Cycling New Zealand that was more career, maybe money focused?
It definitely wasn't money, because you do sport for the love.
Okay, it was career focused.
Career focused. And now it is just hopefully encouraging. Like I do talk a lot about my story at Stoke because I didn't know where it was going to lead. I had hopes and dreams, and so much it's come true. So you don't need a brain injury to take a leap. If you've got a calling in your gut and you're just like, you want to do something, like, what have you got to lose by not? Just go all in on you.
That is awesome, and I think that's a perfect place to wrap up. Before we do, I want to finally ask, where can people find you and Stoked and follow the adventures?
You can find me on LinkedIn, just Debs Brocklesby, not super active, but I'm there. And Instagram, Stoked NZ, Facebook Stoked NZ and our website stokednz.co.nz.
All easy, and I can guarantee you that the towel I have is absolutely beautiful. So go and find yourself a towlie for the summer if you're in New Zealand. And thank you so much for sharing your story today on such a relatable level. It's really cool for people to see that you're 8 years deep into your business. I typically talk to people who are at an earlier phase because of the relatable fact, but you've gone right back and taken us there and provided such actionable advice and such inspiration for building a business with purpose. And I think that is such a cool thing. Like, I can just see how stoked, for lack of a better word, you are with all of it. So thank you for sharing it, your passion, your purpose, and all about your shift.
Thank you. You are doing such good things for the wider community. Go you.
Oh, I'm happy to hear that. Thank you. Okay, that's a wrap.